Aloha family, welcome to my next video. Sorry it's been a little slow getting to this point, but it's taken me a bit to figure out how I was going to proceed, I guess. In some ways, I always thought about telling my story in a book and making a YouTube channel, not just a YouTube video, but a YouTube channel about my life as opposed to a book. It's a different process, and it actually frees me up in a lot of ways, as I realize that people can bookmark their favorite videos or stories or flip-flop around, or that nobody really comes into the story in one particular place and then follows through. So being a little bit redundant is okay. Maybe the first time they actually heard me say it. I don't know. Anyways, how did I actually come about starting this channel? I had considered the name The Emmanuelist as a name for a book, but I needed a name for the channel. So since this was supposed to be the book, and the book has become the channel, the name carried over. It wasn't really a declaration or, I don't know, I've gotten a lot of mixed responses to the name The Manualist. It's just a name I liked and referred to myself as because of its joy it brought me within the scriptures as I looked at my life and other things. So everything kind of became a seen through the lens of that ideal of Emmanuelist, or Emmanuel, God being with us. But how did I get to the channel? That started long time before that started. Around 2011, I started feeling really weak in the body. I wasn't used to being weak. I moved continuously. I always was busy. I always had jobs. I always had a couple of jobs at a time. Suddenly I was getting wore out after just one job. And I didn't know what was going on exactly, but I pushed through it. I moved the family from Amarillo to Arkansas, from Arkansas to Kansas. And then as life kind of took a period of tribulation, my wife's father, a lot of her family had passed, a lot of my family had passed. Her father got cancer and passed relatively quickly, and that was my wife's best friend. So there was a lot of that going on, and there was, the mom being left alone now, and the girls coming up, my daughter's coming of age, and getting into their high school years, and my wife had gotten palmoplantar pustulosis, which at the time was a very scary thing to watch her go through. Medicine keeps her kind of in control of it now, but back then she was in a wheelchair, and it was a scary time. So when my heart's lower left chamber started doing this weird thing where it was beating at like 300 beats per minute, I would feel like I was having a heart attack, and the world would start to black out. I would just shake it off, and I kept pushing. I moved my family, having these minor heart attacks several times a day. I pushed through for 2 years, moved my family to Washington, took over an abandoned farm, tried to make it at least livable, tried to build a community for my kids to be in, because honestly, I was scared that I probably wouldn't be around for them much longer, and I wanted them to have a community to fall back to help them after I was gone. And as the heart issues got worse, as other things got worse, I found that I couldn't even do those things that I was setting out to do. And every day I felt like I was walking through jello, pushing through jello. Like, just getting up and walking to the bathroom wore me out. And by the time I got back to bed, I was ready to go to sleep. I spent every night with back pains in the bathroom, doubled over in pain, and finally I couldn't take it no more. Between the heart and all of the things, I went to the doctor to complain about the back problems. They were like, well, you had a really good doctor. I really am blessed, because this small town little doctor, unlike all of the other doctors I had been to, didn't say, oh, would you like some drugs for your back? Instead, she said, when does it hurt? And then she tested the front of my chest, where my rib cage is, and pushed underneath that. She goes, does it hurt there? And it did. Oh my gosh, did it hurt. So she went and sent me for tests for a gallstone and had my gallbladder checked. And sure enough, I had a stone the size of my thumb lodged in the neck of my gallbladder. The neck of your gallbladder is barely as big as a pencil. And I've got a pretty big thumb. The doctors were worried this was completely stopping the gallbladder from doing its job. It was causing an infection, and this was causing my back pain and a lot of the other things I was feeling. But while they were looking at that, they had noticed also my heart problem. Now suddenly they were concerned that it was so bad that they wouldn't be able to remove my gallbladder without first working on my heart and figuring out what was with it. Long story short, they ended up doing a heart surgery ablation where they burnt 50 some odd nerve endings in my heart, and by the grace of God managed to stop the heart attacks from happening every few hours. And once that was recovered, they were able to remove my gallbladder, and yet I still couldn't regain my strength. I still couldn't regain my energy. And what they ended up finding out was there was a cancerous growth on my thyroid. At first, I think they had diagnosed it as Graves' disease, and so it was, small in comparison to the other issues that I was facing. But it came to pass later that thyroid cancer was probably what was causing the heart problems, and it had been there for quite some time. And because of all the other surgeries I had to go through to be strong enough to get to it, it wasn't until just a couple of years ago, in the time we had the lockdown for COVID and everything else, that I was going to a hospital on the other side of the peninsula to have my thyroid removed along with the cancer that was in it. My wife will have to talk more about parts of this story, but I'd almost died 3 times on the table. Each time they would, work as hard as they could to recover me, send me back to the room, be like, it's gonna be okay. And then I'd go back into again, and back under the knife I'd go. And finally they brought in a whole team. It was quite an arduous process, and hopefully I was cleansed and eventually got healthier as far as that goes. They removed all the cancer. But the 2 years after that, the first year in particular, I had absolutely no strength. I felt so weak, and I was so mad at myself because I had gotten rid of the cancer. I was supposed to be strong now. I was supposed to be able to just bounce back with energy and become that person I was 20 years ago. Time doesn't work that way. And instead, I just found myself sitting there, and I couldn't go out without a fight. I started playing a game called Minecraft just because it was the only thing that my brain had left capable of doing to show that I was alive in here somewhere, in the hopes that it wouldn't be totally forgotten. Eventually I realized that, I'm not going to be of perfect health, but I'm not going to be the go-getter physical person I used to be. And my life changed. And I realized my job changed. I was no longer the provider and the protector. I was now advice giver, storyteller. It was my job to be grandpa, not to be the provider. Not in the same way. So I've been adopting to the new role and thought about my book that had long since left my mind and decided that what a blessing it is that we're able to share our voice, that we're able to share our stories, that we're able to share the voice with which we tell our stories, and that they get to take that with them long after we may or may not be here. So I thought of all kinds of ways to start my channel, but I'm a shy old man. I wasn't trying to become any kind of storyteller other than to my kids, other than my friends, and I knew people would stumble in and stumble along and maybe find interest in my crazy, wacky stories. So I tried to be open and I tried to be ready for that, but I wasn't, ready to go to 20 subscribers, 20 plus subscribers so quickly. So thank you all for those of you who've listened to this video and that have subscribed and that are probably actually people I've seen speaking their heart, shining their light into the world. And it was you doing that that has encouraged me to speak my voice. So thank you. Thank you for being you. And I hope we get to spend a lot more time together. Until next time. Love always. Emmanuel.